Hi, and welcome to the final video lecture for our module this time around. So, we are going to talk about technologies that affect the arts and communication. And this is the hardest topic to cover, I'm going to be honest, just because there's so many different ways that we can talk about the importance of technological innovation and how these innovations have changed society and the self in some remarkable ways. So you'll have to forgive me if I've left out some of your favorite examples. There are just so many things that we could have done. So I've tried my best to whittle it down to a few that sort of will act as a jumping off point. So as we've been talking about through this lecture series for this module, is that distinction between the micro and macro sociological perspectives. And this topic in particular is incredibly micro. So we will start off big, work our way to addressing some of the micro changes through an exciting interactive documentary that you can enjoy and take part in. It's super cool. So let's get going. So we're going to start off by talking about the expression of the self and how technologies have enabled people to do everything from share their words and innermost imaginative realms to painting and mark making, digital arts, dance, film, television, photography, graphic design. There are all sorts of ways in which humans have used various forms of technologies to express their innermost thoughts and emotional states. So there really isn't an area of technology that impacts one's sense of self more than the innovations in the ability to communicate. And this is because of the intensely intimate and profoundly impactful ways that human forms of expressions are amplified and transmitted around the world by communication technologies. So things, as I mentioned, like radio, television, film, photography, art and graphic design, and the internet are some red examples of technologies that have helped amplify and transmit our ability to communicate. And of course, at times and in certain places, personal expressions of some sorts have been quite celebrated. We can all name our national heroes and of poetry and painting and dance, and so there are times and places where we celebrate certain forms of communication, and of course at others it can lead one into danger and exile. And on this point, I'm going to introduce you to the work of Chinese artist Ai Weiwei. And if you go to our notebook, I have included a little write-up about Ai Weiwei and 2 quick articles introducing you to some of his work, as well as a video from him talking about the importance of art and especially art in the world of COVID lockdowns. So what I appreciate about Ai Weiwei is that we can talk about how technology has informed his work, but also his ability to resist and challenge and subvert the interests of the state and even of technology and of capitalism. So he's a really interesting focal point for us, especially for this week, this module, as we think about resistance and subversion. So I've left that for you in our notebook. But moving on, let's start with kind of a macro sociological view as we talk about technological innovations with communication. And I want us to think anthropologically for a moment. And even though we don't have a chance to read Benedict Anderson in this class, perhaps you've come across his work in some of your other classes. But, you know, as a way to consider how communication technology affects societies on a macro level, his work about imagined communities and the spread of nationalism is a really interesting and provocative case in point. Nations are essentially social constructs, argues Anderson, and these are histories that are rooted in social political events, so things like the rise and fall of empires, wars, or the impact of colonialism, as well as specific advancements in literacy, technology, and capitalism. So when we talk about, Canadians or Venezuelans, we are doing something really quite interesting, argues Anderson, that we have, through a series of advancements in technology, in addition to using kind of our social constructs and our imagination, we have basically created an emotional and a cultural phenomenon. Because a nation isn't a concrete thing. Even when we're looking at a map, there's no boundary line that marks Canada from the United States. We imagine that this line is there, and we use maps as a way to coordinate this imagined division between North American peoples. And what is more is that all people believe themselves to be part of a nation. And it's this national identity, and for this national identity, that conflicts arise. And nations are imagined because we'll never meet everybody in our region, whether it be a province or a country or even a continent. So what we do is imagine kind of this unity or similarities based on shared origin or values or a sense of camaraderie between these people in our region that we will never have a chance to meet just because of geography. So what's interesting here for our purposes in this class is sort of how this tendency, this very natural tendency to create imaginary communities, is hastened and uses and is used by certain kinds of technologies. So the printing press, in order to write publications that share and extol the virtues about being of a certain nationality. Or the case in point that I have here, the idea of a Russian-style ballet. And what I've done in our notebook is popped up a short little video about why Russians are so connected with the idea of ballet and ballet technique in particular. And don't worry, you don't need to know anything about the dance form in order to get at this video. What I would like for you to do while you're watching this video is consider how the technique of dancing ballet has been used by Russian nationalists to create kind of this this imagined community out of what it is to be Russian. So you will find all sorts of clues to that effect in this little video. How about you take a pause now, take a look at the work of Ai Weiwei while it's still fresh in our mind, and then watch this video about the imagined community as related to Russian ballet, and then hop back into our video when you're done. We'll see you in a minute. Hi again, welcome back. So you have just taken a look at the video about Russian ballet and considered Anderson's points here about why it is that humans need to have this sense of nationalism, and how this imagined community is can use the arts and communicative technologies as a way to create cohesion and spread these ideas about imagined communities. And some, looking at the world of Russian ballet is a pretty benign and lovely world of this imagined community, but I do need to point out that it's not always lovely things that occur from the use of technology. This is a really important painting called St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. It was painted in 1572 to depict the kind of wanton violence and senseless division between the people of Paris. The people of Paris would consider themselves Parisians and had a collective set of values, much in the way that we've been talking about with the imagined communities of nationalism. But with the dissemination of literature and religious literature that pit Catholics against Protestants, the result of this in Paris and in other parts of Europe during this era was just an all-out massacre. So the idea here is that technology can be implicated in some incredibly negative human behavior that is attributed to our sense of nationalism and our sense of constructing, at least socially, these divides in characteristics, even though, geographically speaking, all of these people share the same geography. And the culprit to this particular massacre is, of course, the printing press. And what I've got queued up for you to aid you in considering the profound changes that the printing press has brought on not only European society, but the world over, is contained as a case study in our notebook. And it really is considered the machine that made us. And what I have posted here is a documentary. It's a full documentary, so it runs about 58 minutes. And it's a full documentary that looks at the profound effects, socially speaking, that come from the Gutenberg press. And it has to be pointed out that while China did already have invented block print technique, it was really the movable type printing that allowed the technology to be scaled up to such a degree that it could be spread globally around the world. So we need to give credit where credit is due, but also consider how these two approaches to creating the same form of technology have differing effects. So I'm going to recommend that if you have time now, why don't you get a snack, get a cup of tea, get cozy, maybe put on those pajama jams, and take a look at this fascinating documentary that walks you through some of the more profound applications and effects of the Gutenberg printing press. And when you're done, if you could share maybe one aspect of the evolution of the printing press that has really impressed you, maybe something that you didn't know prior to considering the importance of the printing press, and you can just leave it in the comment box here. So I'm going to pause, and you're welcome to go and cozy up and watch that now, or watch what remains of this video now and return to it in a little bit. So I'm going to press pause. I'll see you in a minute. Hi again. Welcome back. So I want us to now consider how it is that technological advancements in communications not only is affected by our social constructs, but we can use or have been used to shape our social constructs. So there's a few advancements in communication that are that the effects are seen, and there are a few different ways to take a look at how these effects are made visible. So, many technological advancements in communications spread and disseminate ideas. So these communication technologies, whether it's the handwriting on paper, being able to share printed material, being able to draw, paint, gesture, all of these ways of all of these technologies have the ability to spread and disseminate ideas. So some of the examples that we can think of is the development of mathematics, the ability to share ideas about the abstract world of numbers can only have taken place in a world in which certain technologies are developed so that these ideas could be shared. So having scrolls that can be put on a ship or on a camel's back and shared throughout a region of commercial trade and travels. This has led to the technological, mathematical developments that we are still seeing today and will continue on in the future. Other examples could be, sharing philosophical ideas, maps and map making, and even sharing administrative ideas. So yeah, one way that technological advancements can shape our world is by spreading and disseminating ideas. Technological advancements can also create cultural moments of bonding. So, the ways in which technology was used in calling people to protest and come out and go to rallies during the Arab Spring, or the heartbreaking moments of watching an atrocity like 9/11 occur on live television, or even the end of Game of Thrones. These are all moments where communication technologies have created a way of bonding culturally together. And then finally, it can serve to educate and change our behaviors and beliefs. So by sharing and educating large portions of society, we can see rapid changes in the ways that we view once controversial issues like gay marriage, or educating people about AIDS and other pandemic diseases, or even educating people about the commonalities between groups of people who had been warring or going through conflictive times. So there are a few really important ways in which our social constructs are changed by and change due to technological advancements. Now, one example that I want to draw your attention to is the work of the Canadian cultural theorist Marshall McLuhan. And he has greatly influenced the areas of communication technologies, once known as media technologies. And in 1967, he published a really provocative book called The Medium is the Message. It's a typo that he ended up going with, so if that looks like a spelling error, it's because it sort of is, but he ran with it. The idea here and what he was going for is this notion that you probably have heard of, the medium is the message. And what he's trying to impart here by that is that the form of communication shapes how we communicate. And media are extensions of our senses. So what it is that we create technologically shapes what it is that we are able to say about the world and think through about the world. So in our notebook, I have included a little piece about Marshall McLuhan explaining in more detail how he thinks of the medium as the message. And I wanted to get your thoughts on whether or not you think he was making a technologically deterministic argument or a constructivist argument. And it's interesting to see where people fall and how people create their own argument about this. So how about you take a moment now, come and see the video, think about maybe what you want to comment, and when you have a little bit more time, pop your comment right in there. I'll see you in a moment. Hi, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the short clip about the work of McLuhan and his very important insight as to the medium is the message. I did want to add on to that because he did say some other important things about the nature of technology and certainly mass media and communication technologies that is of interest to us. So McLuhan is critical of media and communication technologies. You probably got that sense from the video. But he also thought that media creates an age of anxiety because technology can really do jobs better than humans. And we see a lot of this in our contemporary society right now. There's a great deal of hand-wringing and anxiety about the role of robots and AI in our societies and what that would do to the necessity of a human being. Humans are also left anxious by media because the media is totalizing and unavoidable. Media bombards us all day, every day, at nearly all points with messages that coerce us economically and personally, and politically, and psychologically. They push us to want to buy things, and really they leave no part of our human social life untouched. You know, the reason why social media is kind of woven in with commercials is because advertisers recognize that these platforms are really effective ways of coercing and nudging us to buy things or think in certain ways or to consume certain products or be certain kinds of people. And I think to really get a sense of that, if you log into Instagram is a really ready example, because you'll notice that how people interact with the platform kind of incorporates commercial interests and political interests and kind of cues as to what kinds of person we should be psychologically. So there's a rich conversation that still exists, even though McLuhan was talking about the world of the 1960s and into the 70s. Much of what he is saying still applies, and maybe even more so, to our contemporary world today. But does this always have to be considered a negative thing? If you've noticed that there's a lot of doomsayers in media and technology studies, and people who are extremely anxious about how technology shapes our lives and why we might want to consider resisting certain aspects of it. But I do want to make the case for how technology can positively impact our life and the things that it teaches us about being a good citizen, being a good person. So I have a really special treat for you. It is the pinnacle of our micro-sociological view of how technology impacts the self. And what it is an interactive documentary. So if you go over to our notebook, I've posted it here. And there's a bit of a preamble just giving you a sense of what it is and what it is about. But to give you the quick version of it, you can watch these 10 episodes of this web series. And don't worry, the web episodes are not like mine that go on forever and ever. They're about 7-8 minutes each. And together they form a really interesting narrative and a story that takes you through a real life and a hybrid life, so an online game, where the journeys of what it is to be human intersect in really interesting ways. So you get to talk about empathy and camaraderie and connection while exploring this really fascinating interrelationship between the story of Ramona, who in real life, her life sort of falls apart, and at the same time she is playing a game where she has an avatar with whom she identifies with quite deeply, and the game becomes a way for her to strengthen herself and discover some emotional and empathetic capacities that her real life just doesn't give her the opportunities to discover these things. So you can use the full interactive experience if you go to the Apple place where you get your apps. I can't remember the name for it. I'm sorry, I'm a middle-aged old lady. You can download the app that gives you all of the hidden interviews and really exciting details about the documentary. And it is set up so that it can be best used on an iPad or iPhone. Chances are it probably can be used on Android devices as well. If you don't have access to the app, don't even worry about it. You can watch all of the 10 episodes just without the bonus features, but you will get so much pleasure from this really fascinating documentary that I think drives home the importance of technologies in our personal and our personal lives, and what we can gain as human beings as we learn how to empathize and be parts of communities. So when you're done with the web series and playing around with the app, there is a discussion question for you to engage with. And really it's just asking you, has technology ever facilitated your learning of life lessons? And you can add your perspective to the comment box here. So friends, that's it. That is all that we have planned in our module looking at technologies and the self. So happy, yummy things, I hope, come your way. You've made it through another learning module that is to be celebrated. Congratulations. I do want to remind you that we have our midterm again starting on Monday, October 26th until the 30th. And you can celebrate your completion of the exam or any other milestone that you feel like needs to be celebrated by hopefully eating something sweet and sparkly. All right, friends, I hope you have enjoyed this series on technologies and the self. All right, see you soon.